Welcome to the Edge Builder Safety Training video number 4. In this video, we will be covering the panel saw, sometimes called the sheathing saw, and the router used for unsheathing panels. The panel saw on our shop floor uses an 8 1/4 inch saw blade rotating at 5,800 RPM. That means when cutting, the blade edge is traveling at more than 140 miles per hour. The router spins at 27,900 RPM, with the cutting edge exceeding 103 miles per hour. With hundreds of panel saw boards and router cuts to be made, being safe is important. At Edge Builder, employee safety is a priority. Each workstation is set up to safely accommodate a specific job function. This can only be possible when each employee embraces a high level of responsibility, not only their safety, but the safe operation of the workstation and fellow employees. The following are common sense Edge Builder worker policies. No drug or alcohol use. Edge Builder has a zero tolerance policy. Any employee found under drug and or alcohol influence will be terminated. Any medication prescribed by a doctor which could affect worker safety should be discussed with your supervisor. Any employee feeling ill during work hours should notify their work supervisor. Here are a few more common sense worker policies for Edge Builder. Safety glasses must be worn on the shop floor. Steel-toed shoes or boots are a requirement. Your shoes must also be of the non-slip variety and in good condition. Employees should avoid wearing loose clothing or jewelry that might get caught in the equipment mechanism, causing bodily damage. Ear protection is strongly recommended but not required. The main function of the panel saw on the factory floor is to cut down to size treated plywood sheathing from larger stock panels. Treated sheathing is primarily used to build wall panels for wood foundations. Some sheathing sheets will need router cuts before final installation can be made. In a typical work shift, it is not uncommon to make many material cuts using the panel saw and router. Let's walk through the safe use of the panel saw and router from beginning to the end of the material cutting process. The process starts with the cut sheet, which specifies the dimension and material to be cut. The cut sheet and material to be cut is provided by the floor supervisor, who will position bulk lumber near the saw for easy loading. From the bulk lumber provided, the next step is to load individual plywood panels on the saw frame rollers. Make sure the saw carriage is pushed up and out of the way of the board to be loaded. Then drag and push a sheet of plywood onto the panel saw, being careful not to drop it on the rollers, which could damage the machine mechanism. Once the material is loaded on the panel saw frame, the next step is to perform a cross cut or rip cut. In a cross cut, the saw carriage is moved from top to bottom of the panel saw frame. A rip cut is performed where the saw carriage is turned sideways and locked in place, with the wood panel pushed through the saw. In this video, we will discuss each cut separately, starting with the cross cut. In a cross cut, it is important to make sure the saw is facing the right direction. Check the saw carriage for an arrow, which should be pointing in the up direction. If not, pull out the black knob shown in the video and rotate the saw carriage to the right direction. Then secure the black knob so it is locked in place. Next is setting up the board for the cross cut. After checking to make sure the board is free of nails or screws, measure out the board for the cut. Once marked, position the cut mark on the board to the indicator found on the saw carriage. Note on the panel saw, the minimum width for a cut is 12 inches. Any cut less than 12 inches in width should be made on the table saw. Then turn on the saw, making sure your hands are out of the path of the saw cut. Gently but firmly pull the saw through the cut. Make sure the saw blade is running at full speed before pushing the blade through the wood. Never force the cut. Allow the blade to do the cutting. Should the saw bind or kick back, turn off the saw. Raise the saw to the top and start again. Once you are through the cut, turn the saw off and return the saw carriage to the top of the panel saw. During the cutting process, it is important to be focused on the job at hand and not carrying a conversation with others. At no time should you walk away from the panel saw with the blade running. To complete a rip cut, it is important to make sure the saw is facing the right direction. Check the saw carriage for an arrow which should be pointed in the left direction. If not, pull on the black knob and rotate the saw carriage. Then secure the black knob so it is locked in place. With the sheathing wood to be cut to the left of the saw carriage, measure out the height of the wood to be cut. Once marked, position the cut mark on the board to the saw blade. Use the red turn screw to secure the saw carriage in place. Note on the panel saw the minimum width for a cut is 12 inches. Any cut less than 12 inches in width should be made on the table saw. Then turn on the saw, making sure your hands are out of the path of the saw cut. Gently but firmly push and then pull the panel through the cut. Make sure the saw blade is running at full speed before pushing the panel through the blade. Never force the cut. Allow the blade to do the cutting. To prevent the saw from binding and kicking back, hold the top board until you are through the cut. Then turn off the saw. Again, during the cutting process, it is important to be focused on the job at hand and not carrying a conversation with others. At no time should you walk away from the panel saw with the blade running. The first step in the shiplap cutting process is to check the cut sheet, then choose the right router for the job. At the panel saw workstation, we have two routers, one for 1/2 inch wood and one for 3/4 inch wood. With the panel secure, your body positioned to cut away from you, and the cord out of the way, turn on the router. Carefully start the cut with both hands on the router handles. The router table should be flat against the wood surface, then follow through, letting the router blade do the cutting. With the board cut, occasional checks should be made to verify the board length, width, and position of the shiplap cut. Boards need to be marked per the cut sheet so the next station can properly identify them for assembly of wall modules. It is important to keep your workstation clean of debris as it creates a hazard for operating the machinery and as well as your personal safety. Pick up any debris on the workstation floor, then sweep the area clean. As with any mechanical machine, there is a potential for the panel saw or router to break down. Should you notice any malfunction of any type, unplug the power cord from the wall and inform the floor supervisor there is a problem with the equipment. Your floor supervisor will then tag out the equipment for repair. This completes the panel saw and router safety training video. At EdgeBuilder, employee safety is a priority. In this presentation, we reviewed the process of safely using the panel saw workstation and common sense EdgeBuilder worker policies. If you have any questions on the use of the panel saw workstation, please contact the floor supervisor.